So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's give it a minute or two for everybody to join before we start today's topic, resume writing best practices by Mr. Kaleem Sayed. It is 5 o'clock now. We will give it a minute or two before we start the presentation. Thank you. So let's start today's presentation by Islamic Society of Greater Houston Job Networking team. It is resume writing best practices, and the presenter is Mr. Kaleem Sayed. Mr. Kaleem Sayed is a certified leadership coach and a career consultant. He has over 30 years of various industry experience. He is the president of Kelsey Group LLC, provides career consulting, coaching, and training. Mr. Kaleem Sayed was our keynote speaker for our ISGH Job Networking first workshop that took place in 2019. And on today, I will let Mr. Kaleem start his presentation. So, Mr. Kaleem, can you start your presentation?
Sure.
Please?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Morsi, for this opportunity to present the resume writing best practices. I hope everybody can hear me very well. And if you have any questions, please put it in chat, and Dr. Morsi will be monitoring the chat room, and therefore we will have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the presentation for question and answers. So my objective today is to provide you the fundamentals of resume writing, and hopefully this will help you to land a new role if that's what your goal is. So with that, I am going to start what we will learn today. We will learn to define the different parts of a resume, which is very important. And I want to make it as easy as possible for you to understand the resume, even though it seems like it's a two-page synopsis of your career, and sometimes it can be a daunting task. It also will help you write a summary statement that markets you or to your target audience. That is very important. And use the STAR story process to craft accomplishments and statement. This is something we will spend a little bit of time on because in my experience, some people have difficulty writing accomplishment statement. And of course, help you write a draft outline of your resume. So, workshop agenda would be, we are going to talk about resume purpose. Why do you need a resume? We'll talk about different parts of a resume, And essentially, there are 4 parts of the resume. We'll talk about that in detail. Different types of resume as well. And also, I'm going to reduce this. Marketing with your resume, this is very important part. And accomplishment statements, as well as the next step. So what is the purpose of the resume? It is obviously to market yourself. This is your professional brand. This is your professional label. And you need to tell the potential audience who you are, what your skills are, what your competencies are. The type and scope of the position you have held in the past, right? And most of the time we used to write about if you had more than 20 years of experience, almost all experiences. But nowadays we try to put it at least 10 to 15 years of experience the most. You still include the other experiences. However, you try to not go into a lot more detail, and we also will have a slide about that as well. What other levels of responsibilities have you had? Also, what skills and competencies do you possess, and what have you developed? Your specific accomplishments. So as you can hear me, the accomplishments and the skills and level of responsibility keeps repeating over and over again. So now let's talk about the types of resume. There are 2 types of resume essentially, and there is one which is a different one I'll call CV, but that's not a resume. So one type of resume is called chronological, which most of the people have, which is typically a 2-page resume. And if you have a 3 or more page resume, you may want to think about consolidation of this particular resume into 2 pages. And typically the chronological resume talks about most frequently used the last few jobs that have you had, and the last job first, and then you talk about your responsibilities as well as your accomplishments and so on and so forth. The functional resume doesn't talk about the type of companies, it more talks about the projects that you have worked on previously. Mostly oil and gas professionals, they have this type of resume. Now, I want to differentiate here between a CV and a resume. Essentially, the resume is a 2-page resume. However, the CV can be 6 or 7 or 4 or 5 pages long. It also includes your publications, your presentations, and different projects that you work on. If you feel comfortable with having a CV and a resume, it's okay to have both. But most of the people in my practice, I see it's a 2-page resume. So what are the parts of the resume? Essentially, we need a heading and headline, right? And nowadays, we don't write the street address where you live or the apartment, or all you need is basically your name, your state or city and state, and that's good enough with your phone number, with your personal email, and as well as your URL for your LinkedIn. This is very important. And there are some do's and don'ts I will share with you as we walk through the resumes, okay? We used to write objective many years ago, right? Which is no more needed. It's outdated pretty much. So one is the headings and headlines. The next one is summary, which is we also call branding. Next one is keyword table. This is where you want to make sure that Google picks up your resume by keyword tables for the job or the job requirements that you are looking at. Your highlights, which are optional, and some people do that right after the keywords. So you want to make it resume so easy that the other person can read it. So your audience is going to be the recruiters, hiring managers, the HR people, and others. The next portion is called employment history, but typically we call it professional experience. And this is where you actually, the format is very important because the name of the company, the last role that you had, and the time frame that you worked with. And again, there are some do's and don'ts of that resume. They will talk about it in about a couple of slides later. The last but not least is your educational background, your professional development and training, any membership or affiliations with the professional societies, any certification that if you had licenses, technical skills, publications, and languages you speak. Now, about the last item about languages, I would ask you to think about it, putting it in a summary rather than in the end. There is nothing wrong in putting in the end how many different languages you speak, but you may want to make it a very impact by saying you are a multilingual or you are bilingual in your summary statement. So we are going to go one by one, slowly digest it, make sure that this is the do's and don'ts we are going to talk about. So John Doe, San Jose, California, and the phone number, your email, and of course your LinkedIn URL. Keep in mind your email and your LinkedIn profile should not be a hyperlink. Make sure it is a text. And I'm going to share with you my template that I share with you, and I will show you from time to time. So this is your personal information. Make sure it is text and not a hyperlink. Why I say this? Because there is something called ATS, compliant resume, applicant tracking system. So please Google it at your leisure and you will find out why. So I'm going to talk about some very important issue right here. ATS compliant resumes do not have a header. They do not have a footer. They don't have lines, or they don't have tables, and they don't have hyperlinks. Please consider that, okay? This is very important. On the second page, make sure that your name, your phone number, and page 2 doesn't appear. No headers, no footers. It should be a part of the body. I personally choose to put it at the bottom of the second page, but some people choose to put it on the top of the second page. It's your personal preference. What is most important is that this is your resume and this is your marketing material. So you should be satisfied with it. And if you're not satisfied with it, then go back again, review it, and do it again and again until you're satisfied. Now, let's talk a little bit about what should be in the resume. Before you start resume, you should know about yourself. Take an inventory of your skills, your competencies, your experience of what have you had. And what I suggest you do, take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and start writing it down. What kind of competencies and skills and experiences have you had? Know yourself first. Now, it is very important for me to point out right at this point that in many cases, you may have had experience for 10 to 15 years, but you may want to do different things in future, which may be different areas for potentially. You may want to get out of oil and gas and do some, get into automotive or something like that. It is very important for you to know that before you write a resume, because you can use your skills and competencies to drive into other areas as well. Communicate your values. This is very, very important as well. And differentiate your skills. That means you should look into what do you have the other people don't have. And that is a very fundamental aspect of resume writing. Marketing with your summary, right? So excellent communication skills, goal-driven, detail-oriented, strong work ethics, self-starter, multitasker, results-driven and team player, and effective problem solver. Think about it. There are about 15 other people who are waiting in line. They're saying the same thing. So how does that differentiate you from others? So this is, avoid using the soft skills languages. When I say this, I mean, don't overuse it. Talk about the beef and the meat of your experiences you have had. This is very important. I see a lot of resumes that actually reflect exactly the same thing what you're reading on the screen. Good communication skills, but you're not telling me about who you are and what skills and competencies you bring in for me to hire you. So it's very important that don't overuse this type of soft skill language. Here, we're going to talk about summary, right, which is called branding as well. And I'm going to read it very loudly, and you will reflect why I'm reading this loudly, plus the previous slide I just talked about. Don't use the skills. Enthusiastic, self-motivated professional with extensive experience in the healthcare industry. Excellent analytical, interpersonal, and organizational and leadership skills. Team player with proven ability to develop effective working relationship at all levels of the organization and to deliver results on time and within budget. strong verbal and written communication presentation skill. For a moment, think about it. What does it say about yourself? Does this represent you when you write something like this? Where are these skills and experiences that you had? What are the platforms that you worked on, whether it be software? What kind of projects have you worked on? It doesn't say anything about that. So I want you to think about it. Now we are going to look at a strong summary. I'm going to read it loudly again. Business operations manager with 10 plus years in new program creation, process design, and continuous improvement. Recognized for reducing order cycle time 40% from 19 to 10 days by collaborating across the supply chain, raising the company to number 2 in market ranking, best known for successful delivery and implementation of new service offerings in a global multi-vendor call center environment. Think about this strong summary versus think about this weak summary. Nowhere in the weak summary it tells you about what have you done, what are your strengths, what do you bring to the table. Lots of soft skills, but here when you talk about a strong summary, let's dissect it a little bit. So a business operations manager with 10 plus years of experience. So it tells you, now if you have 30 plus years of experience, you may want to think about, you can say 20 plus years of experience, because sometimes the 30 plus years of experience may not be favorable in your terms. New program creation, process design, and continuous improvement, right? Right there it talks about continuous improvement, process design. That means these are your skills and competencies. Now, this is very important, recognized for reducing order cycle time 47% from 19 to 10 days by collaborating across supply chain. So it sets your precedence for what? It sets your precedence for accomplishments right there and there. And it also talks about you're a go-getter, raising the company to number 2 in market ranking. Best known for successful delivery and implementation of a new service offering in a global multi-vendor call center environment. So this is one good example of a strong summary, and I want you to think about that also. So now we are going to talk about the skills inventory. What this is right below, so you have your personal information, you have summary or branding, and then here we are talking about skills inventory. And I'm going to bring up my, see right there? As you can see, anything that you have not included in your brand, you can always put down here, maybe budgeting experience, or maybe team leadership, or staff development, or training, assessments, educational backgrounds, anything like that you can also add here as well. So the skills inventory is very important because it will be picked up by Google. And and I'm going to suggest to you a website to go to. It's called jobscan.co, jobscan.co. When you go to the website, you can upload your resume, you can upload the job description of a company that you're applying to, and it will check the keywords that are in your resume based on the job requirements. So if you get, and it will give you through the algorithm a higher score or lower score. So more of the keywords that are in your resume, it will give you a higher score. That's a great opportunity for you to feel good about it and apply. But if you get a low score, don't worry about it. Think about what are the keywords that they're looking for, the company's looking for, that are not in your resume. And then strategically identify those in your resume as well. You can keep doing it. The company will give you about 5 chances to do that. And then they will ask you to subscribe. I encourage you, don't subscribe. The company will come back to you, or you can recommend somebody else within your family member, and they will give you another 5 chances. So that's an excellent way to understand your keywords which are in your resume that are required by the company. Again, the job scan, jobscan.co is the website. So again, marketing with keywords, that's very important. If you're in legal arena, then you can talk about commercial contracting, drafting, legal risk assessment, negotiations, corporate transactions. So as you can see that this is very important that you can use those kind of keywords in your resume. When you are in an administrative position, you can always talk about accounts payable, receivable, vendor management, and purchasing requisition, so on and so forth like that. Anything and everything that you have done that you may not have thought about in previously, you can put it in here in your resume. Don't overdo it again. Make sure that you review it. Make sure you prioritize those and identify which are most impactful, which are the one that most of the companies are looking for, and then you can add those to your resume. If you are a business development person, profit and loss management, over $300 million, that's a very impressive item that you can put down. Business development, capture management, marketing and branding, social media, product and patent management. So these are very, very important keywords that you should include your resume. Now we're gonna talk about responsibility versus accomplishment, right? I see a lot of resumes that are most of the time they're responsibilities, but we don't talk about accomplishment enough. There are a number of reasons why we don't do that, because most people are very humble. Most people are very humble and they don't want to brag about it. They don't know how to brag about it because we are not talked about it. But we are not talking about bragging. We are talking about honestly understanding what are my accomplishments in the previous jobs have I had. And we always write a monthly report to our bosses and we identify those accomplishments. But what happens that after we leave work, we forget about it. So we're going to talk about it. So again, I'm going to bring up my resume, which is a template right here. So think about this. So this is a professional experience, and this is a format. So you're going to put down name of your company, your city and state, your total experience with this particular company, and what was your last role within that company, and also your time with that particular role. So this one is really talks about the responsibility of the company. When you write the responsibility of the company, make sure it is in the past tense. It should not be a long essay. It should be around 3 to 4 lines, and that should be sufficient. So take a look at it. Professional experience, identification of the company and the title. This is very important. And the next one is challenge to, this is a job description, or not job description, but what you did in the past role. It says challenge to ascertain, evaluate, and execute new high growth margin market opportunities with the purpose of complementing existing sales offering. So you can add a little bit more here, but make sure again that think about what did you do? Every day you did something and the company paid you for, but what are the key things you did? And that is what the other, that is what going to impress the other companies. This is the accomplishment part of it, right? So that's, I'm going to go back here, and this is the company information, very simple. How long did you work for this company? What did you do for that company? And then what did you accomplish for this company? So I'm going to read a couple of them. Engineered an acceptable entrance strategy into a $400 million sales opportunity with gross margin in excess of 29%. Think about it for a minute. Is it impressive? Yes? Yes, continue on. Let's talk about it. Conceptualize and propose the program for offsite vendor services, which allowed for a 500% increase in potential market share. Let's pause for a minute. Is it a good accomplishment? Does it make sense? So if suppose you are writing your accomplishment and you don't see those numbers, anytime you are improving efficiency or productivity, you need 2 numbers basically. One is a lower number, one is a higher number. So your low efficiency, you improve to high efficiency, low productivity to high productivity. If you reduce defects, then you need high number, and then you need a low number. You went from high number to low number. What was the percentage? Percentage of defect elimination, percentage of efficiency improvement or productivity improvement. If you reduce the cycle time by number of days, you can also do that as well. Think about that. We saw that in the summary. the number of days of reduction in cycle time. I'm going to read one more here. Increase sales production 22% by strengthening sales productivity by working with field sales personnel through training and mentoring. So there are a lot of your competencies are coming into play right here. That you have increased the production by 22% by strengthening what? Strengthening sales productivity by working with field sales personnel through training and mentoring. So your mentoring skills and your training skills also are shown here along with your numbers as well. So I want you to think about it. In case if you don't have those numbers, then simply ask the question, so what? So what if you did this? And automatically you will start thinking that, well, I did this, and then what was the result? What was the impact to the company? What was the impact to the group? Did you improve something? Did you reduce something? In your accomplishment, please don't say that improve or reduce, because the immediate question is going to be by how much? By how much did you improve or by how much did you reduce? And if you don't have those numbers, try to think about those. And then try to, don't lie on the resume, obviously, but think about honestly and saying, what kind of impact did you make for the company that you work for? And that is very important. So then, during the interview process, what happens that either a group of a panel of people will ask you these questions, or a one-on-one interview, they will ask you these questions. We call it STAR. It says situation, task, action, and results. So they may look at one of your accomplishments saying, Joe, I like your number 2 bullet on your last job. You said you reduced or improved productivity by 22%. Can you please tell me how did you do that? At that time, you need to have some STAR stories or SOAR stories, very important, because you were a part of this particular process, so you know exactly how did you do it. So you're going to talk about what was the situation, what was the objective. That's number 1, which is situation. Task, what obstacle did you come to overcome or problem to solve? Was there any obstacle? Maybe you were working with a global team. Maybe you were working in an environment where your stakeholders were in different time zones, and maybe you were working with a team that did not have as much of information. So those are very important issues to think about. What did you do? What skills did you use? That's very, very important part of it. So you're describing this, and we call a STAR story, in a reasonable time, because you don't have obviously full 2 hours to actually go through that. Excuse me. So you need to think about the action you took and what were the results. How did it benefit the company, met objectives, or solve the problems? What if you hadn't taken that action? What was prevented? What if I when possible? So this STAR or SOAR stories will come in very handy in the interview process. It goes back to my previous slide. Think about each of these accomplishments that you have there. How did you accomplish 29% margin? How did you accomplish the 22% productivity increase in sales? Another way to look at it, the STAR story has action verbs, right? Updated sales and marketing methods used by the XYZ department. Then key skills used in these accomplishments by introducing social media and sales and tools and client tracking and month-to-month reports. What was the result? The result was increased sales by 21% and lower print costs by $10,000. I know some of you may be thinking this is so hard to do, but I can tell you that over my experience, it is amazing that people absolutely have very basic accomplishment, but when they start thinking about them, when they're being challenged, when they're being coached, lo and behold, they actually come through the numbers. And that is what you're going to help. That is what is going to impress the potential employer, that you have accomplished, and that's what they're going to hire you. So I'm going to go back again to the education portion of it, which is, if you have a PhD, you don't need to write your junior college. You can say, your PhD, your master's, and bachelor's. If you let me share with you my template here. Again, it's very, very simple. Education and credentials. Sometimes you may want to separate out education and credentials. You may want to separate out community involvement, but community involvement, if you have done something 15 years ago, don't put it there. Try to put something reasonable within last year or two, what you have done. What type of community involvement? What kind of community service did you do? Don't put down any dates, particularly if you have 30 years of experience, for example, over 25 years of experience. I suggest you don't put any dates at your education, right beside your college, okay? The same thing if you have any professional affiliations, and if you're a member of a certain society, please identify that. If you have licenses, for example, let's say CPA, you can always say the state of Texas, state of Louisiana, your license number, and the date. If it is active, that's perfect, that's good. And like I said, in the end, if you want to put down the page 2 with your name and phone number, that's also fine, but make sure it's part of your resume, not a footer. So additional informations are very important, right? Memberships are important, publications, if you have any military experience is very important as well. You may want to write down your rank as well, and what did you do in military. Patents are very, very important. Licenses, certification, awards, and honor. I'm going to speak about honors and awards for a second here. A lot of people tend to put down honors and awards into accomplishments, but honestly, that's not an accomplishment. That is a recognition of your accomplishment. So you may want to think about it and saying, what did I do to deserve that award or honor? And all of a sudden you will say, oh, I actually reduced the cycle time for mortgage processing, or a continuous improvement process. I implemented about 15 ideas. So I was recognized by the company and I was awarded. So you can have a separate category for awards and honors, volunteer experience, community service, which is the same thing, and language skills and proficiencies. As I mentioned, I'm going to go back in the beginning, and this is where you may want to write down that a business operations manager, a bilingual or multilingual professional with 10+ years of experience, something like that, in the summary part of it rather than in the end. If you want to put down in the end, that's okay also. How many different languages do you speak? That's okay as well. But you want to make an impact by telling them very upfront. So what are the next steps? The next steps are refer your resume to model what was outlined in the workshop today, develop a summary statement, write accomplishment statement, and finalize your resume. Now you may think this is why mistake, right? Don't postpone writing your resume, do it today. It can be a daunting task to write a resume and reformat the resume, but I can guarantee you, if you break it down into the 4 steps that I mentioned to you, I think it's going to be very easy for you to do that. So I'm going to go back again and share with you the very template that I share with my clients. You have personal information, very simple. Then you have branding. We just talked about it. Who you are professionally. Think about that, right? What are the 3 things that you're good at? And then, of course, identify a very positioning statement, which is a summary of your experience. And then we did talk at length about what should be included here. Anything that you have not included in your summary statement, but you want to tell other people that you also had other responsibilities as well, you can always put it down here in the bullet, which are the key strengths or keywords. And the rest is your professional experience, and you cannot get rid of it because that's what you have done over the years, right? So it's very important to format it properly. Make it easy for the person who's going to read the resume. Don't make it hard. Education and credentials, as I said, some people talk about should I put dates on them? I said, don't put the dates on it. Community involvement, we talked about that, professional affiliation, and page 2. So with that, I think we are on target, and we can answer some of the questions. So Dr. Morsi
Yes.
will ask me the question. I will answer those questions.
Okay. So the first question that we have from Caroline, do you actually need a different resume for every position you apply for?
Thank you, Caroline, for asking that question. It's a very, very good question also. What I suggest is have one master resume and then go to jobscan.co, upload the resume, your resume, and also the job description, and then take a look at it, which are the keywords which are not included in your resume, and then adjust that resume accordingly, and then you can name it that way. So that's how you don't have to redo the whole resume, just only some of the keywords. And what will happen if you're applying for a healthcare position, for example, or a business analyst position? These resumes are written by the HR people, and they don't come from Mars, right? So they are going to be pretty much similar, but keep in mind that if you go through the website of jobscan.co, I think it will make it easy for you to do that. So my recommendation is don't make too many separate resumes. It will confuse you.
Okay, so the next question about, is there any difference between the academic resume versus the industry one?
I don't understand quite, what do you mean by academic resume?
So the resume that you use to apply for universities, colleges, for teaching positions versus the industry one that you use for to apply for businesses. So, and yes.
It is the same thing. However, if you're applying for a research position in a university, then you may want to have a CV because your CV will have publication, the research information, and so forth like that. So as I said, you can have a resume, still 2-page, and you can have a CV separately. But ideally, 2-page resume is sufficient, whether you're applying for academic or industry.
Okay, so another question that I noticed no dates on your resume, but when you submit the application, they want to know the dates of your position. Do you need the dates?
So when you, on the resume, let me go back here for a second. So the thing is, ideally, you want to put down the dates for the last 15 years maximum. The other, you can actually say additional experience, and then you don't put the dates. Just name of the company and what did you do, what was your title, and don't put the dates on it. Because most of the companies nowadays, they are looking for, let's say, 10 to 15 years of experience max. Now, unless you have done something in 1996, that is the company is looking for, that's a different story. But then you don't need to put in the experience there. You need to include that in your summary statement upfront.
Okay.
Now, if you're applying for if you're applying online, if they're asking for experience, yes, you have no choice, you have to do it. But on a resume, you don't have to do it more than 15 years of experience.
Okay, so Mr. Kaleem, another question about the cover letter. So what exactly is the cover letter purpose, and what is the message that it delivers more than the resume? And if you have any suggestions for the cover letter.
Well, thank you for asking this question. It's a very important one also. So cover letter is something that if you have it, is great. If you don't have it, it's not going to hurt you. The question now is, what should be included in cover letter? What cover letter should not be is a duplication of your resume. Okay, so be careful about that. Cover letter should have basically your information on the top, and that the persons who are you addressing to, that information again right below to the left-hand side. I will always suggest to you that please write down either subject or reference. Within that, what do you want is a job that you're applying for, whether title of the job or the reference number of the job is very important. Keep in mind that they may have 10 jobs that they have advertised with the different levels and different grades with similar titles. So when you're writing a cover letter, you want to make sure that you're telling the recruiter and or the HR manager or hiring manager, what job are you applying for? So it's very important. And then you can say, if you know the name of the person that you are addressing this to, you can say, Dear Dennis, or dear Mr. So-and-so, or if you don't have the name, you can say dear sir or madam, they're still valid. Then you can start out by saying that I am applying for this particular position and I feel I'm very qualified for this position because, and you can bulletize some of the key points that you want to convey to these people. And then that's about it. Looking forward to hearing from you. Sincerely yours, and you can sign your name that way. Does it help you?
Yeah, for sure. Mr. Kaleem, a very common question, and this is something I personally see in so many of the people that I have seen their resumes in job networking, is the resume length. Some people literally they have 4 to 6 or even more than that pages. What is the page length that you suggest, and what is the common trends in the industry?
So the industry trend today or these days is 2-page resume maximum. If people have 3 or 4 or 5 pages, guess what? It takes about 6 seconds for a recruiter to scan your resume. 6 seconds. Not a minute, not 2 minutes, 6 seconds. And if you take a page and you fold it in half, the first half of the page is the one that is scanned very quickly, because that's your summary statement, that's your keywords, and that's what it's all about. So that is very important. And if you're applying for a teaching position, or if you're applying for a research position and so forth like that, or if you have lots of projects that you have done and people are looking for a CV, then it can be 4 to 6 or 8 pages. Then it's fine, because this is where you're documenting all your publication, your experiences, and research material. However, for the resume purposes, make sure that it is contained within 2 pages.
Thank you. The next question is, 1 second. Okay, so the next question is, if you don't feel comfortable about your last position, should you use that company? Since not working in 2018, how do you build your resume for that position?
So that's a very challenging question, right? Because here's what's going to happen. If you don't put down anything from 2008 until now, the first question they will ask you, so can you please explain the gap? How would you explain the gap? You have to, right? Whether you did something different, and if you did have your own business, or if you did your own consulting, or if you're helping manage your parents' apartment complexes, or manage your family business or something like that, you can do that. You can write it down. And what did you do? When you're an office manager, were you actually managing the business on a daily basis? Were you an accounting person? Were you an HR person within that business? So you have to write, and you have to fill the gap. Because if you don't do it in the resume, people will immediately know. As I said, make it easy for the other person to talk to you and call you for the interview. When you don't have any information and there's a gap, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that.
Actually, the next question is the same, related to this. I'm entering the job market after 2+ years break, and also to a different industry. Should I still use the chronological format, and do I need to put some reason for the break on the resume?
The answer is same as the last question. So you have to justify your breaks. People are very curious, what did you do? It's not that it's bad that you didn't do, you did not work for a company, but you must have done something, right? Particularly some ladies, they take off for different reasons. So that's okay. You can write it down that I took off 2 years to raise my family, and that's fine. You can do that. However, if you don't explain the gap, it's going to be very difficult for somebody to entertain your resume.
So the next point really, this is something also I noticed from the so many resumes that we see in job networking. Some people they put their key skills that are outdated and they are still insisting to use them on the resume. I'm not sure if they put this because they don't have any other updated skills or just to fill the gap. And both actually are bad reasons for including an out-of-date skills. Let me give you an example. For example, since I'm an IT background, so if I see any resume when I find someone saying that I'm expert in Perl script, Perl is not the standard right now, but Python is the standard. So if I see Python, that's a needed skill. But if I see Perl, that's an outdated skill. So really, you need to study the market trend, and you need to see what is needed, and you need to prepare yourself for it. And Mr. Kaleem, I really need you to comment on networking in general. Some people, they stay in the blind spot, if you will, for years, and they insist to use their skills, and they live in a bubble thinking that they should be hired. Can you comment on networking and utilizing of connections these days in getting back into good opportunities?
Dr. Morsi, you asked some very fantastic questions, and these are very, very important. So I'm going to answer the question about the networking first, okay? Networking these days is absolutely must. Absolutely must. Without networking, it's going to be very difficult to find a job. Now, that doesn't mean that you should not apply to on the website, or that you should not apply to Indeed or some other LinkedIn or Monster.com and so forth like that. Absolutely, you should apply for that, right? But the research that says 76% of the jobs are found by people through network. Either you get recommendations, or you know somebody that work in the company and so on and so forth like that. But you must network and connect with people through LinkedIn, which is a primary source. Facebook is a good way to do it. Update your network, and I'm going to give you an excellent place to go. And nowadays it's easy for you because you don't even have to travel. JS101.org. J is in job, S is in search, JS101.org. Please make a note of it. Go to the website, go to the calendar. Every Thursday they have classes on LinkedIn. It's absolutely free of charge. Make sure you have a laptop with you, and I think you can connect with Zoom. It's a 3-hour class from 10 to 1, and you will learn so much about it. How do you set up your profile? What do you think you should have? What kind of recommendations should you get? What should be in About Me? What kind of experience should you add on? And then start building your LinkedIn connections from there. If you have a good profile, then it's the next step. LinkedIn for job seekers, or LinkedIn for connections, or LinkedIn for profile. There are 3 classes, but you can attend any of these classes as many times as you want. It is absolutely free. Again, I will repeat the name, JS101.org. And again, that's if we don't have any stay at home, then these classes are held at 3300 Chimney Rock Road. But I would suggest now is a good time to do it because you don't have to travel. It's all online. Let's talk about, Dr. Morsi, you brought up a question in the beginning. It said, what if your experience is old and you're not up to date? I encourage you to go out there and get as much information as possible, or take courses, a lot of things. In fact, if you go to nextdoor.com or Nextdoor app, which is a neighborhood app, you will see that Harvard University has 67 courses that are offering free of charge. And I'll give this link to Dr. Morsi, so put it on the site so you can have access to it. In fact, I was just looking at it. This gentleman put it on the Nextdoor. 67 courses are absolutely free, and there are a lot of other resources that are available as well. I also want to give you another resource, which is called referenceusa.com. Referenceusa.com. It's a database of the companies that you're looking for. You can put the filters, size of the company, location of the company, the type of companies, big, small, large, number of people, revenues, and so forth like that. You can sort it out and get a reasonable number of companies to apply to. You can go out to their website and take a look at, and maybe you can apply there as well. I hope that helps you.
Yes, and actually, I want to second what you just said. We in today's what's happening due to COVID-19 and the huge amount of unemployment, and actually this is the dark side of the problem. But the bright side of the problem, that it is the best time now to resharpen your soul and to gain more skills. From personal experience, for the past 20 years in industry, once you join a company, they are expecting from you to deliver from day one. So the learning curve should be very steep, and sometimes it's very harsh. But now, really, you can take your time in learning new skills, get trained on what is the current standards or what's the current needed in your industry, whatever it's software, hardware, mechanical, medical, business, accounting. And as Mr. Kaleem said, there are so many free, we call it sandwich courses, which means really that you can take them for free. They are available online, and you can get a quick course, right, that teaches you a skill, or it can teach you a new talent that you can utilize and that really sharpen your expertise. So once the job market opens again, then you can be the very first one. You'd be ready. You already have new experience. You learned what is needed. So, and I gave that example, and I will repeat it again. For example, this is the best time to learn a new programming language, new scripting language. This is the best time to learn what is needed, soft skills, and all these things, and update your resume accordingly. Do not expect, and I have seen this a lot, and Mr. Kaleem, in the last workshop, you saw this yourself. So many people come to you with their last, they graduated like 30 years ago, and from 30 years ago till today, they don't have a single certificate, no trainings, and they are still questioning why we are not hired. So do you second me with Mr. Kaleem on have you experienced this?
Absolutely. I think continuous improvement, continuous learning is very, very important. Thank you, Dr. Morsi, for those comments. I appreciate that. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things. And yeah, I second what Dr. Morsi was saying about continuous learning. And for example, LinkedIn Learning, if you subscribe to LinkedIn Learning through LinkedIn, for a month, it will cost you maybe $35. But let me say this, actually the first time if you go and subscribe to it, it's free of charge for the whole month. LinkedIn Learning has many, many courses. There was a company called lynda.com, lynda.com, that was bought out by LinkedIn. And then if you subscribe to LinkedIn Premier for free of charge for 1 month, you can take advantage of all the courses that are available. There are courses, there are paths, and there are lots of learning to it. You name it, software, like Dr. Morsi was saying about Python software. You're talking about project management. You're talking about Six Sigma. You're talking about business analysts. It's just like kid in a candy store. Once you go in there, however, one thing I will caution you, once you look at this, I need to understand what you really want to accomplish, because otherwise what's going to happen, you are going to take a course here and course there and course that, and at the end of the day, you haven't accomplished. So focus, have a strategy about your job hunting, and then think about what are the 3 or 4 things that you need for job hunting. So I'm going to summarize those, okay? You need a good resume. Make sure that you write your own resume. Of course, somebody can help you edit it, but you need to write your own resume because you own it at the end of the day, number one. And that should reflect you in your brand, like I'm saying here, and who you are, and then what are your 3 strengths, so that's important. The second thing is you need a LinkedIn profile, and a good one. The third thing you need between LinkedIn and your resume is your positioning statement right there, your summary, because that is part of your resume and that will be part of your LinkedIn also. Then you need LinkedIn connections. Continues to build LinkedIn connections. And I can guarantee you that once you start this process, you'll be surprised at how many people are connected with you. Start with the people that you know first, and then the LinkedIn will propose to you different people. Say, hey, maybe you want to connect with these people. Think through it, and then see if you want to connect with them. That's fine. Do that. And I think this will go a long, long way. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Saying, hey, I'm looking for a position here. Do you know of anything that might be opening up? And so on and so forth, like with the people that you connect with. It's okay. And you have to get out from your shell. You have to ask for, because if you don't ask, you don't get it. And it's a different world nowadays, right, than compared to 10 years ago. So we have to make it happen. Now, one more thing. Dr. Morsi, do we have time?
Actually, I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
One more question before we conclude the meeting. We are almost 5 minutes left. So, Mr. Kaleem, with what is going on in the market right now, when do you expect that the job market will open again?
So the studies that I have privileged to review, that once the state of Texas and other states, surrounding states and so forth like that, they start opening up, you will see a lot of jobs coming up as well. So my suggestion to you right now is get on. Like, remember I said in my my last slide, do it today, right? So get on the ball, review your resume today, don't delay, start working on LinkedIn profile. I gave you some good good website to go to, js101.org, jobscan.co, referenceusa.com. So these are the resources that are available to you. One more thing, Dr. Morsi, I'm going to suggest to you that a lot of people say that, look, it's so boring being at home and so on and so forth like that. How do I spend my day? So I asked this question in my training session one time, and this one gentleman, he said, look, I do, number one, I spend time with family and kids. That's very, very important. The second thing, I spend about an hour and a half to 2 maybe for applying jobs. Then probably hour and a half on learning some new tool, for example. And then maybe an hour approximately to connect with other people, have some conversation. If you are good at blogging on LinkedIn, by all means, comment on the different posts of the people. Be involved, get active. People will notice you. And then eventually they'll come back to you and have a conversation. So your connections, and then people may say, okay, after I connect, what is next? Well, then you start a conversation with the people, right? Hi, how are you? How are you dealing with the coronavirus? What kind of jobs do you anticipate that will be opening up in next few days and so forth like that? I like your profile. Where did you get this particular experience? Get involved, build a relationship, and this is how you'll get connections with people back, and they will connect with you. So connection alone is not the key. Connecting, making comments on the post at LinkedIn, and then building relationship. That is the key. And once the virus is over, maybe you can meet for breakfast, or maybe you get for coffee or something like that, or coffee or lunch maybe, and then exchange your ideas and get to know each other. And this is how people help each other out.
So, Mr. Kaleem, any concluding remarks before I conclude today's event?
Yes, and thank you for that. So, guys and gals, I can tell you that it's not going to be easy to get the resume done and make it perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, right? Just follow a methodology, and if you like this particular the template that I just shared with you, I can give it to Dr. Morsi, and he can put it on the website as well. If you like that, I think just follow the format, copy and paste, and start building your resume. And at some point in time, you will feel good. Then you can share with somebody that you know who's good at reading resume, like what we did. I always like to read out loud to see if I hear something that doesn't make any sense. And then once you do it 2 or 3, 4 times, it's going to be fine. And then start using the resources I mentioned. And I think you are ready to get a new job, or at least rolling for the new job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaleem. Really, we appreciate your being with us today. Thanks for your experience. And thanks everybody for joining us. I really need you all to go to the YouTube and search for ISGH space job networking. Again, search for ISGH space job space networking. And please sign up and subscribe to our channel so you can get all the videos, including today's video. Sign up there, you will get a notification once we upload any new video. And if you want to join any of our social media groups, ISGH Job Networking social media group, please go to isgh.org/networking, isgh.org/networking, and register there. And the last thing that I want to mention, that next week we have the last training for this event, which is rebranding your LinkedIn. Rebranding your LinkedIn. So from today till next week, I really need you to follow the tips that Mr. Kaleem said and try to come up with a very good resume. I call it draft resume. So by next week, when we talk about the rebranding your LinkedIn, your resume should be ready because you will use it in updating your LinkedIn profile. And from now till next week, if you have any question, please feel free to direct it directly to Mr. Kaleem Saeed through the email he posted in the beginning, or send it to jobs.networking@isgh.org. Again, the email is jobs.networking@isgh.org. Thank you, everyone. And with this, I will conclude the meeting.
I hope this session was helpful to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.